Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing well during this quarantine. So, for this lesson, I was chosen to do a lesson on word recognition. And I just thought before I get into it and get started that I just kind of give you a disclaimer is that I do not have the textbook. So, all of the information you're about to see and learn is not from the Beers textbook that we have in class, but Professor Yorko gave me permission to use other online resources as she did with everybody. But I just thought I'd give you a heads up that none of this is from the textbook, and it's mainly off of a website called study.com that was very helpful. And this information might even be in the textbook, I just wouldn't know. So, just a disclaimer before I begin, but I'm Mary Kate, and I'm going to present on word recognition. All right, so kind of a presentation layout, or what I'm going to talk about in this presentation, is what is word recognition, the stages of word recognition, strategies to use to teach word recognition, and then I will show you an activity which I'm excited about because it involves my siblings, because I would have done it with you guys, of course, if we were all at school, but because of the situation, I thought I'd do it with my siblings, and you'll get to see. And then I'll just kind of summarize everything I went over, and then you'll see the references that I used. So in this lesson, we'll learn the stages of word recognition that students will experience as they grow from young children who are just beginning to see the relationship between letters and sounds to fluent readers. All right, so let's begin. All right, so what is word recognition? Word recognition is a process by which students learn to identify words and word parts. It begins with an understanding that letters symbolize the sounds in words and progresses to the ability to understand complex word parts and syllabication principles. And then there are 5 stages that we're going to talk about. So the first one will be the pre-alphabetic stage. The second stage will be the partial alphabetic stage. The third stage is the full alphabetic stage, and then the last 2 stages are the graphomenic stage, which is also known as the consolidated alphabet stage, and the morphemic stage, which is also known as the automatic phase. Alrighty, so to begin, we are going to learn about the pre-alphabetic stage, and this is found in children of the ages between the preschool, mostly preschool and younger. So how do early childhood teachers prepare students for reading? Most preschoolers are in the pre-alphabetic stage. So during the pre-alphabetic phase of decoding, the students has very limited experience with words and letters. And during this phase, students may be able to identify just a few letters and environmental words in context, such as the word exit, but only when it's seen on a sign, right? So students in this phase should be able to read their name, but may not understand the relationship between the letters of their name and the sounds that they make. So teachers support student growth at this phase by teaching letters, sounds, and sight words within the context of predictable or repeated text. So a lot of this is starting to learn. You have very limited experience with letters and words and their sounds. Very limited. You might, have those couple words that you recognize, like as it gave the example of exit, you might see it on a sign and you would only recognize it on that sign, but not within any other text. You might, but that's very uncommon for you to know that. And same with their name, right? They know the side of their name, but they might not know each letter sound that each of the letter sounds that make up the sound of your name. All right. The next stage is the partial alphabetic stage. And the age range within this stage is preschool and kindergarten. You're starting to get a little bit older. You're becoming a little more aware of what the alphabet is all about, what the letters mean. So as students learn more letters and sounds, they enter the partial alphabetic phase. So the partial alphabetic phase of decoding is when students have achieved the ability to name most of the consonants of the alphabet and can identify the sounds associated with them. So during this phase, students are able to decode some words phonetically, but generally do not use context clues to help them make the meaning of words. But students in this phase may invent words and spelling in an effort to apply their limited knowledge of phonetic principles. So teachers support student growth by continuing to teach letter names and sounds, but also introducing word families. And students at this stage could also write full sentences with the assistance of sentence stems, right? So they're becoming more aware of what's going on. What does this letter, sound make? And they're able to decode some words, right? Which is good, but they cannot use their context clues to figure it out. They're not that advanced readers yet, but they are getting there at this stage, right? So this is important things to know when, when you're teaching each grade level, right, is these stages. So even as a teacher, right, introducing word families, continuing to teach letter names and sounds. Make sure you focus on that highly between the preschool and kindergarten stage age. All right, and then the next phase is the full alphabetic stage, right? We're getting even further. So this is between the ages of kindergarten and first grade. You're getting older, getting more aware of what words are all about, what sounds, and what each letter is, right? So as students become more proficient at identifying single letters and sounds, their word attack skills become more sophisticated. So during the full alphabetic phase of decoding, students demonstrate automaticity, wow, in decoding words by single letter sounds. So the first and last letter of a word are predominantly used to attack new words. So toward the end of this phase, students will know many sight words and will be less likely to substitute nonsense words while reading. Students will continue to use invented spelling, but it will more closely match realistic word patterns. And during this phase, teachers can begin to teach vowel patterns, syllabication, and structural analysis, all very important within word recognition. You want to get them familiar with how words work and how words can be similar to other words. But again, in this phase, they're becoming more aware. They're becoming, they're starting to be more sophisticated in their invented spelling, right? Which is important. These are all good things to be aware of when you're teaching and a student is when you're looking at a student's work and when they're spelling or when they're reading, you want to recognize what words are they substituting for this word or anything like that. So, and then we're getting there. We're on the second to last stage, the graphonemic stage. So by this point, students have become fairly proficient at decoding words, but they will need to continue learning about more advanced word elements. So during the graphonemic phase of decoding, the student understands frequently used word patterns and rhymes. Rhymes are part of the word that occur after the initial phoneme. And I know you guys know that. We learned that probably in almost every class we've taken it as an education major. The student will begin decoding multisyllabic words and new words by sight. So for example, when a student in this phase knows the word thought and ought, the student will be able to decode the word brought without any assistance because they are so similar and so like the same. We know that the ought sound, that it makes that sound. So putting a th in front of it will make that thought, but replace that with a br, it'll just bring brought. It's simple, phonics, right? We love phonics. All right. So this phase generally occurs between 2nd and 5th grade, and teachers will continue to teach more advanced prefixes and suffixes as well as word origins. So students will be able to write multiple sentences, which is, way better than using just a sentence and a sentence stem. They're getting older, they're getting more wise. So these are important things to teach them also, the structural elements of a word and how you can manipulate like the different prefixes and suffixes to change a meaning of a word. It's honestly, words are pretty amazing. Pretty cool how you can manipulate them all. All right, so for the final stage is the morphemic stage. So, and then the age range, of course, is 5th grade and on. We even are sort of still in this morphemic stage at times in life. Obviously not as heavily as maybe younger grades are, who are still struggling readers or who are still learning to read in the 5th grade and on. But it is between those ranges, right? So the morphemic phase of decoding is also called the automatic phase of decoding, right? We know that. During this phase, students are consistently able to decode both known and unknown words and are able to fully attend to comprehension strategies, right? There's a difference this time. They're not just, they don't just, know word by sight, but they know their meaning. which is important. So teachers can help students grow by introducing students to various types of texts. Students read to learn about other content areas, and students can, in this phase, can usually write about full paragraphs, We hope by the 5th grade and by our age that we are able to write full paragraphs. So in this phase, it is more about the meaning of the word, right? We know that morpheme is the meaning, the smallest meaning of a word. And so in the morphemic stage, it's all focusing on meanings of words. It's not just knowing them by sight, but is knowing what they mean. And it further builds their comprehension skills, which is super important, right? Right. All right. So now I'm going to just show you a video that basically kind of goes over everything that I talked about. It kind of even gives some examples of what you could do as a teacher in helping them learn these strategies. It's just a nice visual, right, besides my slides. So we are good to move on to word recognition strategies. Yay, the fun part. So the strategies that I'm going to go over, I know Yorker only says I have to do 2, but because I honestly don't have a lot to talk about, I might as well just talk about 3 that was mentioned that I thought were good things to use in the classroom, right? So the first one is repeated readings, the second is word structure, and then context clues. So I remember when I first saw these without reading what they were all about, I was kind of how are these strategies, right? I guess repeating readings, I get why that's a strategy, but what do you mean by word structure and context clues? How are those word recognition strategies? And then I read what they're all about, so I'll tell you as well. So when we talk about repeated readings, it's the best way for young readers to learn to recognize words by sight is to see them often. So teachers can expose young readers to words by offering activities that use these words, like bingo and matching games. An even more effective way students learn to recognize words is through authentic interactions with books. So the more students read it and are read to, the more they learn, the more words they learn, and the more that they can see oh, I saw this in that story. And maybe you might read a story and use those words and some of those keywords in the story or sight words in the story in the game of bingo or a matching game. So teachers should offer a wide variety of books and plenty of time for reading for each of the students, no matter the grade level, even the youngest. Of course, in the preschool level, you might do way more simple books, but nonetheless, it is important to include those word recognition strategies like the bingo and matching. I remember when my first year of field, I was in a preschool classroom and they did stations. I was always there for stations and I was always helping them run stations. And my favorite stations were when the kids got to play bingo. And literally this is exactly what they did. The teacher had some sight words, or they would even do letters. When I was first there, we did letters first, and then eventually it became words. But they started with letter sounds, right? She didn't have me explicitly say the letter. She'd have me no, do the sound of the letter, and have them guess which one it is, or maybe use that letter in a word, and then have the students guess. It's a fun way for students to build their phonemic awareness, or to build their phonics, and to build that word recognition. And as you get older, you could even use bingo for vocabulary words in a history lesson. I remember I used to do that too when I was in school. They would read the definition and you had to put down which word was that definition. So all of these things can be used within the classroom in a fun way. Or the matching game. For one of my classes, I even made a game it was called Matching Madness, and I had pictures of all the different animals that started with a different letter of the alphabet, and then I had all the letters of the alphabet, and what you did was you had to match the letter with the correct animal. So those are just some things to think about when you do repeated readings. It doesn't always have to be like a sailboat fluency where they have to read and then just add one word is added each sentence. It can be through games and fun activities, and not just rereading reading different things. All right, so the next is word structure. And before I show you some example activities, I'll tell you what word structure is all about. So once a student begins to recognize some words, their ability to recognize others grows. Why is this? Students begin to put together principles of the alphabetic system and make connections between words. So for example, when a teacher tells children about prefixes, they'll be able to recognize the meaning and usage of un in words like undo or unbutton. So when they know what un means, they're going to be able to figure out when you put un in front of a word what that is doing to that word. So that is kind of what word structure is about in teaching, using different strategies that have to do with word structure. And instead of like, making kind of a slide to list different activities, I thought I'd show you through Pinterest because I thought it was a fun and different way to show you all. And I thought some of the ideas were so like genius and cool, like how they'll do, oyster, toy, they have different activities like these, like the vowel team activities, or, it's a lot of them have to do with flashcards, right? They have the C and G and street, like they all have that E sound, C, G, and street, like so like building similarities upon like others. It'll help them build connections. It'll help them build their semantic memory, right? Their semantic knowledge, and that is crucial in the early childhood education, is building upon their knowledge and previously learned things and connecting them. So these are just some different activities, right, that they could do. A lot of vowel games, right? Digraph games, or, working with different like beginning manipulations, like, phoneme manipulation cards, right? I learned about that in a different class, and I thought those were genius. And I even remember when I was younger doing flashcards like those, but at the time I didn't realize that's what the purpose was to understand the different ways you can manipulate a word. So you have like different base word and suffix, ship and shipped. So those are just some different activities you could do, and I could always send you the link to these when you're in your future classrooms and you're thinking of ways how you can teach word structure. So I definitely will keep this pinned in my own Pinterest, of course. But yeah, so I thought that would be a different way to show you some word structure activities. All right, so, and then the last the last strategy is context clues. And wow, this one is honestly super crucial, and it's more for older ages, not more for younger. It is more as you get into that full alphabetic and graphememic and morphemic stage. It's more in those stages that you should use strategies that have to do with context clues, right? So teachers can teach students to increase their word recognition skills by instructing in the use of context clues, or those things in books students use to read words. So strategies include teaching students to use picture clues. If the text is unknown, a student can check out the picture for help and guidance. So they can also use text clues. For example, if the unknown word in a sentence, my dog likes to chew, and you just can't figure out that next word, so the teachers can show the students how to use the surrounding text to read and recognize the unknown word bones. So this, I feel like at this stage, I wish I would have had more help in a way, like more um, instruction when I was a kid in this age, because I always struggled with comprehension. I was a fine reader. I could read well, not very well out loud. I'm honestly terrible at reading out loud. But with this strategy, it just like if somebody would have just taught me, like you can use so many different things to help you comprehend a text or to recognize what these words are, it would have been so beneficial to me, because I again, I struggle with comprehension. So just the fact that you can teach students to use what's around them, what is in front of them, what the sentences around them, or maybe have them think like, what are some things that dogs like to chew? Like, what do you think? And then maybe a guess would be bones for them, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, that was bones. So they would be able to recognize that. Or like using pictures. And honestly, I'm writing an action research paper on how visuals will help comprehension, right? So, and mine specifically focus on graphic organizers, but nonetheless, it is still like a visual. And that is so important in helping students recognize, like, what am I reading about? What is this word that I can't figure out? Will anything around this text, or will the picture help me know what is being talked about, or that I can make an educated guess? So that is basically how context clues work, and how you can use those activities, right? And it's all, again, all comes down to reading. Reading helps word recognition, right? It helps, honestly, reading helps with so many things beyond word recognition, but it does help with word recognition nonetheless. All right, so I'm gonna again just kind of give you, show you a video to review everything, all the strategies that I talked about, and again, kind of just give you a visual besides my boring. That was kind of a review of my strategies. All right. So for my activity, I am going to, first I'm going to kind of explain what I'm going to do, but then I'm going to pause this and then get all set up, and then I'll show you, demonstrate the activities that I would have done with you guys, but that I'm going to do with my siblings, and I have to go get them and stuff. So for my first activity, I was going to do sight word bingo, and I kind of just stole this idea from what my preschool field teacher did, but instead of like the letters, I made it a little more older by putting like typical sight words, that you might want to teach your children to know, that will make even just like reading easier for them. So I created them myself because I have time, to just do this while I'm at home. So I made 2 boards, one for each of my sisters, right? So I have this one. I don't know if you guys can see it. So I just made that, and has just, the typical words that you might use as sight words, and a free space because all bingo boards get a free space. Perfect, right? And then on the other board, I did the exact same thing, same words, but I just did them in different places because that would defeat the purpose of trying to win bingo if you just put them all in the same spot. Okay, so those are my bingo boards, and then I made myself a little bingo word list, kind of an answer key, for me to just jump around and say what words I want to say. So that is the first activity I was going to do. And again, like in your future classrooms, you can do this with vocabulary words. You can use this in younger grades with letters of the alphabet, or maybe even like different sounds like the ing or the th sounds, different phonics like that. The options are endless with bingo. So for the next, I was going to do 2 because it'd be pretty boring just to watch us play bingo the entire time. So I would do that for a little bit, but then I was going to have my sisters kind of do a competition. I kind of came up with this myself, so we'll see how this goes. Where I wrote on our little chalkboard different words, and like different root words, and then a little boxes of prefix and suffix choices. So this is kind of the paper version of it, but I didn't use all the words because they didn't fit all on my chalkboard. But so what you would do, I'd probably give them a certain amount of time, or just whoever finishes first, to put all the different prefixes or suffixes with each word. And for each one, they get 1 point for each prefix or suffix that they put on, but they get 2 if they put both a prefix and a suffix on each word. So it's just kind of like a fun, friendly competition with word recognition, just, kind of manipulating how the word's going to go. And it's a fun game, I think, for them to just kind of try out for fun. So those will be my 2 activities that I'm going to demonstrate for you, and I'm kind of excited, honestly. So I'm going to pause for a second, and we'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I got us all set up with some sight word bingo. Right here we have my older sister, Mallory. She's graduated from college. She's an adult, has a real job, So obviously this isn't quite accurate. But then I have my other sister, Madeline, and she is in 6th grade. And obviously this is probably also Her skill level is also probably above what we're going to do, but I was going to do it with you guys anyway. So here we go. We're going to play some sight word bingo just for a little bit. They have their boards down here with some Starburst as their um, game chips and the different words. So here I go, just for a little bit. Light, light. And I explained the rules to them and everything beforehand, so they all know. Let's do keep. Keep. Fall. Let's do pick. Pick. Mm-hmm. Start. Start. Let's do hold. I don't know yet. And draw. Draw. Wow. How about light? Did it do light? Laugh. Oh. And clean. Oh. Say it, Maddie. Oh, bingo! Maddie got a bingo. Yay! So that's just kind of how it goes. It's kind of fun, lighthearted. And since I did it with Starburst, you can have the winner eat their Starburst or something like that. All right, so stay tuned for the next activity. All right, so for our next activity, it's kind of a game or competition, fun competition, right? So it's going to have to do with prefixes and suffixes, right? Different word parts. So on the board back here, I give them kind of like a word bank, but like a prefix and suffix bank that they can both use. It's not just one side can use the other. But it has different prefixes they could use and different suffixes that they could use. And then each player, right? This one's player, this is the other player. They get a list of 3 words, and they get 1 point if they use one side, either just a prefix or just a suffix, or they can get 2 points for using both sides. So I'm going to give them about a minute, probably, or honestly, they might finish before. And then we'll see who wins. Again, one is an adult and one is in 6th grade. So just keep that in mind as this goes through. So it would be a fun competition when we had age-appropriate children doing this. But here we go. Ready on your mark. Get set. Yeah. Done. Distasteful, Maddie. Perfect. Good job. All right. All right. Oh, excuse me, Ted. All right. So. What do I get? All right. So obviously the adult one, even though Maddie did very well, she just kind of struggled on tasteful or taste, and she helped her. So Mallory won in this instance, but we're not that impressed because she's an adult. So, so those are my activities. And then I will get back to the presentation. Thank you, ladies. And thank you. All right. All right. So those were my activities. I hope you enjoyed them. And now I'm just going to kind of sum it up for you. So today we learned a lot about word recognition, right? Word recognition is very important and crucial in especially early childhood development, right? And their reading skills and just becoming fluent in comprehensive readers. Word recognition is key. All right, so again, what we learned was what is word recognition? It's a process by which students acquire the skills necessary to decode words. And then we learned about its 5 different phases or stages. And the first being the pre-alphabetic stage, which occurs in early childhood as students are beginning to recognize that there is a relationship between letters and sounds, right? And then the second phase being the partial alphabetic stage, which is where students are able to identify the consonants and the sounds that they make. And then the third stage being the full alphabetic stage, right? They're getting more and more into the alphabet. They know what letter sounds are. They're starting to recognize that, oh, these make words, and this is why this word sounds this way, right? So in the full alphabetic stage, students are able to decode small words one letter at a time. Important. And then it leads to the graphonemic stage, which is in which students are able to use multiple word attack skills to decode multi-syllabic words. They might use the first letter and the last letter. They might just go part by part, maybe knowing the different word parts like we did with the prefix and suffix kind of activity. And then the last stage, of course, is the morphemic stage. And during this stage is which students can decode with a level of automaticity that allows them to concentrate on reading comprehension rather than decoding. So, that's kind of what, the fifth grade and on stage. We're even in this stage, right? We still struggle to read, super like medical terms, for example. Like, we're not going to know what all those words are if we don't break the word down or even look it up, right? So, that is word recognition, right? So we know what word recognition is, we know the 5 stages, some three different strategies to use within the classroom that are beneficial, um, such as repeated readings, working on the word parts, and doing context clues. All right, and then just kind of finish it up, we got my references. Again, I used the website study.com. What a lifesaver that site was. But I also use my teaching reading textbook a lot with learning about word recognition too as well. And I also, of course, use Pinterest because Pinterest gives me a lot of ideas and they're super crafty. And hopefully, when I'm a teacher one day, I'll have my own Pinterest board of all different strategies and activities that a student can do. Alrighty. I know it's not the full 45, but we're almost there. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and that you could get a little laugh out of it. But enjoy your quarantine and God bless. Hi guys, so in my original presentation, the videos, I didn't realize that the sound wasn't gonna work because it usually in the past it has. So here's extra the videos but with the subtitles under it so that you can see what they are saying at least, because it's not like I can send you a link to this because you have to have an account at this website to be able to watch these videos. So here you go. Sorry about that. So that's the first one. And then here is the second one again. Alright, so there's the videos. Sorry that they didn't work in my main presentation video, but I just thought it was important enough to add because they just give really good summary and just good overview of everything I talk about. So sorry about that. Thank you.